this partly as a response to an asymmetry that I think you were getting at, in that question, which is that, we have, adversaries such as China or Russia or even Iran that clearly think of the world in terms of zones of influence.
Does Donald Trump want to redraw the map of the world? In a news conference, he was asked if he was ruling out using military or economic force against Greenland or the Panama Canal. No, he wasn't ruling that out, he said. Is Trump really thinking of taking action against his neighbours, invading them, or is he just doing what he's always done, trying to gain advantage in a deal? Joe Sternberg is a member of the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, one of our guides to American thought. Joe, morning to you.
Good morning.
What did you make of what? Because Trump's been a bit quiet, hasn't he? He's not said that much, and then gave this press conference yesterday and let himself go a little.
Yeah, look, I am 99% certain that no one is going to be invading anyone in the second Trump administration. So, I mean, my read on this is that I think that what he is trying to do is launch a very provocative discussion about what America's national interests are, particularly in our own hemisphere, which is actually something that America hasn't done in a long time. And so I think that kind of what I find really interesting is that, certainly these comments that he made in the press conference seem to have been deliberately provocative. I mean, to the point of trolling. I mean, if you woke up this morning and you seriously thought that the U.S. was going to invade Panama or Greenland, congratulations, you have just been trolled by Donald Trump. Yeah. But the other thing that you'll notice is a lot of serious discussion that I haven't seen in decades in major newspapers about exactly what is America's strategic relationship with a place like Greenland. Why does it matter? What are the strategic implications of various ports or shipping through the Panama Canal? And I think that seems to be what the Trump team wants people to focus on.
There's a fascinating piece actually by Roger Boys, a great expert on international affairs in the Times today, why Trump's Greenland pitch makes good sense, because the real enemy he's talking about here is China, isn't it? That China has a big role in the Panama Canal. It's got two Hong Kong-based ports there, Hong Kong controlling ports there. It's big in South America. It's big in Central America. It's big in Africa. It's big in the Pacific. And Trump seems to be saying that's his number one foreign priority. Now, whether we think this man who says he doesn't want to be involved in any wars is going to invade a country, we probably don't believe him. But he clearly sees China as a thing he's going to be wrestling with for 4 years.
Yeah, and I see this partly as a response to an asymmetry that I think you were getting at, in that question, which is that, we have, adversaries such as China or Russia or even Iran that clearly think of the world in terms of zones of influence. So, I mean, I'm here to tell you, China is very touchy about any U.S. involvement in what they perceive as their sphere in the Indo-Pacific. Russia clearly feels the same way in what Vladimir Putin believes should be Russia's historic sphere of influence. The U.S. is not, quote unquote, territorial in that way in the Western Hemisphere. Part of what I interpret these comments as are sort of a shot across the bow saying, okay, well, I mean, if you guys want to really think of the world in terms of carving up zones of influence, that means that we are going to be much less forgiving of your activities in what we would perceive as our sphere. So, I mean, you have to either, you China or you Russia have to either pick whether you want to think of the world in more global terms with the trade benefits and the like that you have benefited from, or we are going to think in your terms and start thinking about protecting our sphere.
Do we just finally, Joe, do we run the risk of normalizing what he says? Because we say, well, that's just Trump going for a deal. He knows how to work the room. He's just, he doesn't really think Canada's going to be the 51st state, but it's a play he makes in order to do tariffs on Canada. Do we normalize? He says these mad things, and then we sort of find ways of making it seem strategic. Or actually, is he being strategic?
I think that there is a certain animal cunning about Trump and his political method that you discount at your peril. So like I said, I don't think that anyone seriously imagines that we're going to invade anyone, but he has succeeded in starting this new discussion that America has not had in a long time about national interests in America's hemisphere.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that a bit later in the programme as well. Joe, always interesting to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
With us now is Josh Glancy, editor of the Sunday Times' News Review, who went to a part of Greenland during Trump's first term. Morning to you, Josh.
Good morning, Asma.
First of all, what was your reaction when you heard this?
Well, it's sort of deja vu all over again, really, isn't it? It is amazing with Trump that nothing's really changed. He still throws out these absolutely blindsiding, unimaginable ideas that have a sort of kernel of truth and logic to them, but are sort of unfeasible, unimaginable, and totally out of the frame of reference of foreign affairs as they're currently conducted. So it was kind of back to the future, really.
People who come from Greenland, I think they're called Greenlanders, is that right? There's 56,000 of them?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting place. I got a call from my editor back in August 2019 saying, can you get to Greenland? It took me about 4 days to get there from Washington to go via Iceland. It's mostly Inuit, so it's about 88% Inuit, and then about 12% Danish and others. It's a constituent part of the Kingdom of Denmark. It has a relationship with Denmark a bit like Britain's relationship with the Falklands. So Denmark looks after defence and foreign affairs. It has kind of some monetary oversight. But apart from that, Greenland is quite self-governing. But there is a strong independence movement there. And Trump's interest in Greenland has kind of turbocharged the independence movement.
Well, I'm sure it has. Why does he want it? Well, why is he expressing an interest in it yet again?
Well, so the idea first came about, it was knocking about Washington think tanks in 2019. There is a long history of America in Greenland. President Truman offered $100 million to buy Greenland unsuccessfully in the 50s or 40s. But it was knocking about in 2019, and I think Senator Tom Cotton got it in Trump's ear that this was a good idea, and Trump just liked it. He tweeted a picture of a big gold Trump Tower in Greenland. God. I think it played to his acquisitive nature, his kind of the real estate developer in him. But there is a serious point underlying this, which is great power competition in the Arctic is a big deal now. Russia obviously has a huge Arctic presence. China is exploring what's called a polar Silk Road, although it hasn't had that much success with it. And America sees Greenland as strategically very important. It has the Pitofik space base there, formerly known as the Thule Air Base, which is all its early warning systems for ballistic missiles are done in the very northern part of Greenland. It also has nuclear subs up there. So it's pretty serious strategic stuff. And there's also a lot of rare earth materials, iron ore, zinc, lithium, oil, all of which, as global warming causes the ice pack to retreat, all of which becomes slightly more available over time. So there is a kind of serious strategic point here. The idea of just wading in and buying or even invading it seems pretty far-fetched.
Well, I'm glad you've said that, but it was still interesting to talk about it